Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm here with the co host of the show, Jen, the Arcane Observer, as well as Ricky from the Anything is Possible podcast. And we're just going to have a talk about all things paranormal and go in whatever directions we feel like, and hopefully you all will enjoy it. So I think that takes care of everything. Just for a quick note, please check out all the links in every episode description because there you can find links to anyone who's a guest on the show. So I'll be including Ricky's link on the episode description for this one, and of course, as always, there's a link to all of Jen's shows as well. So, but yeah, everyone, thank you for being here, and let's start to bring everyone in. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, happy to be here. Ricky, this is exciting. Looking forward to the conversation. And James, thank you as always.
Yeah, no problem. Yep. And Ricky, welcome to the show as well. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate y'all having me. And yeah, Jan, I think it's going to be a fun one for sure. Who knows where it's going to go.
Yeah. So I was talking with Jen. I was trying to decide if we wanted to have a starting topic or not, and I decided, well, the next show that Jen and I do is going to be mostly on the idea of angels and demons. So I wanted to see if we want to start talking with that topic tonight, and then just let the conversation go from there. So I don't know what your thoughts are on either of those things, Ricky, as far as what's what and what is what those words are referring to, and just experiences and whatever else you have to share on just what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I truly believe there are angels and demons. You have kind of that duality of good and evil, that balance. You see, not just on the paranormal shows and stuff like that, but you see all kinds of terrible places that that have to some of the hauntings and stuff there are so heinous, and and there's of course there's stories of about possession and everything where man, I'm trying to think of that one murder. I can see the documentary on it, the shot doc on it I watched a while back, but it was he that was what his guy's plea was he the demon possessed him, and why he actually did what he did, and it's why he murdered that man, because it wasn't him, it was something else actually controlling his body, and so it's MJC can't hear us.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Sweet said the sound was okay earlier, so hopefully it's still okay now. But and she's typing, so we will see in a moment. Okay, yeah. So hopefully we're good.
Okay, might be MJ then.
Yeah, it could be. Okay, very good. Thank you, Sweets. Talking to everyone in the chat there. Yeah, I think I don't know the name of the case, but I think I know. Did it involve the Warrens as well, or they?
It did.
Yeah, devil made me do it.
The Conjuring, the devil made me do it. I had to look it up real quick. That was driving me crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they're
I watched
topic, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Oh yeah, no doubt. But yeah, I like watching some of them shock docs and stuff. It's pretty interesting. But for sure, I mean, there's, you see people mess around with stuff and try to open up stuff, and it's like you're playing with stuff that you don't understand. Yeah, the devil made me do it was the shot dog. That's what I thought. It was really good. and it's the potential of it. I see it as it's possible. There's too many times throughout history, it's happened. It's for it not to be just like whatever it is. It's baloney. There's something to it. And you see really evil spots that had really bad stuff happen. And then it's you have it makes you question it. Is it all this evil happening because it's just by chance of this circumstance, or is there actually something else underlining there causing all this terrible stuff to happen at the same time? It's when you look at some of the history in some places and then the hauntings and stuff, it makes you a sure enough question, like, is there a more powerful entity there, pushing people to the point of, making them, cause them to do this kind of terrible things, or,
Yeah, I do think that I don't know if they're as like common as Hollywood wants us to think they are, as far as the number of places that have any kind of like a demon or just negative. And again, there's the word demon, depending on who you talk to and what sources you go with, doesn't mean negative or evil automatically, but that's the meaning that has been sort of pinned on it these days, especially. But the number of places that actually have one of those versus the number of places that just have some human spirit, or even just the energy of the people that are there, just being used or expended in weird ways, has always been a big debate and a fascinating sort of gray area to me, as far as where does one end and the other begin.
Yeah, I mean, because for sure people like leave just a, essence of themselves in the area, even, they, when they were really attached, it seems like they do. That there's it might not be like it's a residual. It's not what they say, a residual haunting. It's not like it can't talk back. It can't interact with nobody. It's just there and kind of wandering around because that's that energy. You go back to, like Chinese and stuff, and like chi and energy like that. You got have energy. They say we have energy in us, and you and part of that energy actually, you leave that little spot there, and and over time, what you did at that spot over and over again is kind of, it makes you. I can see that. I could see more residual than like you said with Hollywood and stuff. Of course, wants to make it all kinds of fancy, and they got to make 30,000 ghost shows and stuff like that, and they got to keep a narrative push. But I think a lot of it is truly is more residual. But then there are some hauntings that that's not. I dealt with one before, and and watching them shows and stuff, and use the flashlights to kind of communicate, and just to see, because the moment, it just, I didn't go out to try to go do that. That wasn't intent. I was actually at work, and I was like, well, and weird stuff started happening. So we're like, the other guy was like, let's try this. And it actually worked. And flashlight was completely screwed together. There wasn't no vibration. There wasn't no plants. Nothing was running. So it was really no reason for it to act the way it did. It was, so it was pretty neat. So I do believe in those kind of hauntings, and like city residuals, and then there's evil out there for sure. I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the flashlight thing is fascinating because as long as you're careful with it, you can get some weird, as far as like you rule out, like you said, the vibrations and all those things that you can rule, if you can sort of filter that out and make sure it doesn't happen so easily. I've seen it, of course, on TV shows, but not only just in TV shows. I know that actual paranormal investigators use that technique as well. So, but yeah, Jen, what do you think about all this so far?
Oh yeah, I think of it. Well, I've always been fascinated with it. I saw I think that one of the first horror movies I ever saw, and I had an older brother, so who was about 3 years older than I was. So I'd be renting like Strawberry Shortcake or whatever, but we had one TV, for the kids, and my brother or my cousins or whatever, they'd rent other movies. And one of the first movies I remember watching that was like truly just unbelievable was The Exorcist. And it stuck with me it was just unbelievable to watch it. And I did over the years, I read the books and the Peter Blatty, looked at all of his, all the background of the story, and then deeper researched into it and was fixated on it. And then from there, looking into these are the lore around it is that these are, I take it as if they are some type of they're a species, a type of literal physical species that can take the shape. It has they have a type of body. And we're talking about it in the case of angels and demons and them being basically of a similar sort of class of entity, but they come in all these different variations of what they represent. And they're named, and these are like individual compilations of so many different other, I guess we'd call it like powers or souls. And they have a physical form, and these are absolutely ancient. They're before time, as far as humanity keeping time. And they appear to be some type of an entity that can be conjured up. They have names, they have certain attributes, they have things that they like and things that they don't like. They speak specific languages or all languages. They seem to be a type of entity class, like a type of literal creature that appears and then doesn't appear. So thinking about them in that term, you have, of course, the idea that people who do evil things and are completely, psychotic or whatever the case, that makes them do horrific human things that seem beyond the realm of possibility for a normal human being to perform, in such cases of murder and massacre and rape and things like that. And they do it unprovoked. So they're sort of like they intentionally go out to do these things, like a predator. But that, when they die, they have this sort of, they all have this, there's a lot of occultism around, a lot of that negativity. And the same, and there's the idea that soul of that person, when they die, is still wandering the earth in a way. And the same kind of goes for people who, like saints, in a lot of mythos, that they live in such an upright way, in such a forthright, true way, that the same thing sort of applies. So you have that aspect, but I'm talking about angels and demons as they are named in so many different books, in so many different manuscripts, that they have names and they have attributes. Some of them had offspring. It's like they are a type of class of entity that was at one point believed to have existed. There are some theories even that the Holy Bible, the Black Book, that Moses and many of these individuals, that they were not necessarily, they may not have been people as we think of them today. They may have been an entirely different species of sort. And in the case of Abraham and a lot of the lore of that was kept in a cave. When he was a child, he was hidden away because of these attributes that they didn't want him to be seen. And he was attempted to be burned by the Chaldeans on multiple occasions and did not burn. These are like these, it's like a different class of species. And you hear about this in the Mayans, you hear about this in Egypt. These entities that are not necessarily just these spirit beings, but they have a unique attribute that whether they're angels or demons, the species has an ability to cast itself out of itself. So, and operate basically from a distance. So they're highly telepathic in a way. Actually, there's many different accounts of how they would read. Like, I've heard accounts that demons are not completely telepathic, but they can put themselves anywhere and they can see what is going on. They can't actually read the mind. So there's different types of demons and different types of angels that communicate in different ways, and some of them are purely telepathic. I don't know. I think that it's really interesting that some can only observe, but they communicate. A lot of people will say that they're communicating telepathically, but in other cases, they saw them in literal physical form, and sometimes they take up the form of a human being. And there's a lot about that. Are they possessing, like taking a person and using it as a vessel? Or is that how they are able to manifest themselves at the time, and that's what they choose to do? But I don't know that they are necessarily entirely spiritual. There's a huge caste system of how they are interacting. And the whole lore of it, with Iblis and things like that, it's very closely related to like the mythos of the djinn. So you have that too closely aligning. In fact, I did a video talking about trying to understand if Iblis was either an angel or if it was a djinn. And because it's actually mentioned to be both. And that is described as an entire species that are just as fickle as human beings. But then the way that human beings interacting with them, they can take a great deal of vengeance. In the video I did do about it, I pulled that video just to hold on to it and do further things with it and so on and so forth. But what I kind of realized was like they have it's like they are immortal. In a lot of the folklore, they are immortal. But they can be, in literal, like the texts and things like that, it can be killed. But it's almost as if they are immortal unless they are killed. So like they would live a very long time, say 900 years, 700 years, as long as nothing killed it.
Right. Highly resistant to, or highly just, I guess you'd say like really good health, or really something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. All these beings out there, it's weird how there's similarities and differences, but they all seem to have some similarities in just some of the things they can do. This reminds me of I've read a couple of accounts and heard a couple of people that pick up a random person out in the middle of nowhere while they're driving, that will ride with them for a while, and this person seems to know like everything about the driver, and sometimes they'll even give them a message of do this or don't do that, or other times they'll just want to ride supposedly, and then they'll get dropped off, and then the driver will look back and the person will be gone. And it's sort of a vanishing hitchhiker thing, but it's a variant of that, to where people wonder, was that an angel? Was that a demon? Was that some other being, ancient being from another time that somehow has these other abilities, that just wanted some interaction, or literally did just want a ride for however much of a distance before using its own abilities to go wherever else it wanted to go.
Yeah, I was sitting there. I was thinking about the djinn too. You know, the possibilities of just different cultures calling it different things, because you got the good djinn and you got the tricksters, and then you got the evil djinn, and you kind of have the angels and demons wrapped up in one, truly, in which biblically the demons they're fallen angels. So it kind of goes together where it's like they're both talking about the same thing for sure. When you're going through history, and like, of course, through the Bible, you got the angels would, lay with men, the daughters of men, to have the babies and have the powerful. So there had to been, for uh, to have, be able to do that, they had to be some kind of, for sure, entity, like Jen was saying, to be able to reproduce. They had to be. It makes me wonder because I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I told it on your show. I think I did, James, a while back when I come on about story. I don't, looking back today, I'm not sure, but I think I had like an angel come up and show up here in my house, and all of a sudden, I remember I got up and all of a sudden, just somebody was standing in my room with me and was talking to me, and I was calm about it. It didn't bother me none. I just kept on talking and having conversation, and I wish to everything. I remember what it was because I was really, really young. It was probably 89, 90, somewhere around there, maybe, when it happened, but maybe 88, somewhere around there, between 88 and 90, 91. Because I know we left that house in 91, so it couldn't have been past November of 91. So, having that something come to me and talk to me and stuff like that, having that energy, like I said, he looks like it's like a normal person, so, and that's what they talk about, like the angels that look, they look normal. Not all of them have the big magical wings and all that kind of stuff. I think the wings and stuff with the angels didn't even start coming out. Jen, you might be able to tell me I'm wrong. I think it was like the 1500s and stuff before they even really had angels with wings and stuff, depicted in history and stuff, and with pictures and all that. Original talks about aliens. Angels didn't have anything with wings.
They have these different classes of angels. So, like an angels, and in this case, it could be demons too. I think demons is not necessarily. You have daemons and demons. So you have the concept that daemons being a little bit more positive, and then in Greek texts they talk about daemons being kind of separated out as being more negative. If they chose to, leave their first estate, there's all those concepts. But the cherubim, it's a class of angel, and they are winged. So they have multiple wings. Sometimes they have all these attributes of different animals, and they have multiple eyes and things like that. So the cherubim and the different ranks of angels, which are also attributed to archdemons and things like that. So in the different books, the Magus, and in the text of Solomon, they are depicted with wings, but not the way that we think about it in a way. Not the picture with a human being with wings. They have multiple wings. They look nothing like a human being. They look like an ethmoric, several attributes of many things combined. And so there are depictions like that, but the class, like you're saying, the classic depiction we see in artwork, it's kind of like the cherub as being like kind of a butterball baby with wings. These are all really odd, and trying to source them out, there is an account that in one of the created worlds, there's always these talking about you have this world, you have like the first world, the second world, the third world, the fourth world, the fifth world, accounts in South America of multiple worlds and different creations of different beings at different times. And in one of those creation stories, the gods made everyone to basically stay in like a childlike space. So you had like a realm that they were talking about, or at least in the mythos, where they stayed in a childlike form, and they appeared to be like children, and they would live for like hundreds of years. And so there is a myth in South American culture and in cultures in Eastern Europe where they talk about an age where that did occur at some point, where they were basically like a sort of, wasn't Lord of the Flies. It was literally they were in the shape and in the mindset of forever like children, but they lived for very long periods of time. So I don't know if that's the source of what we see today with the cherub looking like a baby, but being a type of angel, of sorts. Then there's the idea too that demons, or at least the concepts of them, are the spirits of the sacrificed youths. So like in cases in the Chaldeans, there are ideas that they may have performed human sacrifice, infanticide sacrifices, and that these may be like the basically the souls of these infants that then go on, because they were sacrificed to a god, to be in the spirit realm, sort of undeveloped in the physical world, but developing and sort of a container of sorts of expression nonetheless, because it was unfulfilled potential of life. So you have all these different concepts about what it could be, but I still kind of hold that I think it is an entity, that these are a true species entity. But the way that they are defined, it is divided up into, it is such a complex system, and it has a whole lore to it. What's really odd is that you see it in all of the Abrahamic religions, but you also see it in Taoists, and in all of the Taoist magic and things like that. They talk about the demons, and not necessarily called angels per se like that, but like one of the interesting things I learned when I was looking into Taoist magic is the way to respond to a demon is to pretend like you don't see it. And then there's all these different tricks about it. But it's almost like these are not just spirits. It's like they are the projection from a physical living thing that is somewhere. And some people say at the bottom of the ocean, or that they are under the earth in some way.
That's really amazing if you think about that too, because if you think about the idea of a heaven or a hell, I mean, when you think about, so often the popular image of hell is you go down, and anything that is bad that's from there, any supposedly demons or whatever, they come up from there. And there's accounts of people seeing things go into the sky or go into the ground, and so. Yeah, all these things seem to connect in a lot of ways. Just looking at the chat here, I want to say hello to everyone that's in there. I see everyone, Matt Sowell and Sweets and Herschel and Mike and MJ and everyone. Of course, Ricky and Jen are in there. And anyone I missed, I apologize for that. But Matt Sowell says biblical angels versus Hallmark angels. Yeah, and then we were talking about that the other day. The cherubim sitting on the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, all those ancient items as well, and how all those fit into everything. But yeah, I think it's weird how there's some things that seem to, we get them from places, and then they become embedded in the popular culture, even if they're not, what is in popular culture is not actually accurate compared to the original sources. But then the problem is there are so many original sources to look back on, just as you were describing, Jen. That's amazing that there's so many different views on all this as well.
For sure. I mean, I was looked it up. I was curiosity. I was sitting there. Background. It said I looked it up. It said the winged angel trope took off in Christian art after the Constantine conversion in 313. So it was a lot earlier than I even thought. Said catacombs and churches. Early Christian art shows angels, winged figures, blending seraphim and cherubim imagery with messenger angels. So it's been going for a long time since for almost 2,000 years now.
Yeah, a good 1700. That's a
Mm-hmm.
good ways. Yeah. And the thing that always amazes me too is with a lot of that kind of all that is put into architecture and everything. And the further back you go, I mean, depending on how far you back you go or who you talk to, but that stuff had to be. There was no easy way to make all that stuff. Like you had to be an expert at your carving or chiseling or whatever you were doing to put all those figures that you don't normally see out in the open world every day onto all this stuff. So that's a lot of effort and time and resources to put into these things if no one thought that there was at least something to all that.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at the precision of some of the old sculptures and stuff, to the point of, um, you know, I can't think of the name of it, but there was, if you move your thumb a certain way, you actually raise up a muscle or tendon in your arm. And I remember when this one sculpture actually showed that it was the detail to the point. I think it was part of one of Da Vinci's, I think, but we actually showed it, to that point of, hey, there's, when you move your thumb, that point of your arm actually comes up and your forearm, and it is the detail. And I agree, if, for them to throw extra stuff on, if there's some kind of, thought process, and, you know, from ancient times, like, if you look at, like, not to take it away from the subject, but, like dragons and stuff, like the Chinese calendar has so many different things, and that's the one thing that, well, there's no such thing as dragons. Like, I don't know. I mean, everything else in the calendar is actually real life. I, just because we don't see something right now today, I think a lot of people just throw it out the door and go, whatever. The Bible talks about great, monsters, creatures and stuff, and unicorns, which, you know, which if you look back into the actual, like, Greek and Latin, uh, it looks like, the unicorns on just a food for thought, fun fact, I guess. It's actually they think it's talking about rhino because of there was, the actual great, I think the Latin is back to unicornus. So it was actually, a rhino was actually a unicorn, but it's kind of useless information I got in my head, but
No, that's okay. And as far as the subject goes, we can go wherever we want to with this tonight. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, definitely with dragons too. That's a whole other um, fascinating thing because I do agree that just because it's not around now necessarily doesn't mean it couldn't have been around before at some point. And I mean, yeah, there's mythology, but how often do we just how often does mythology seem so realistic in some ways in the stories and the events? And the only thing that maybe may seem weird to some people is just the powers that people have and or the creatures that they see. But now we're getting further and further into a time in the future where people are going to be able to make almost whatever they want to, just about. So possibly, and so who knows if that wasn't possible way back when for either people or other beings out there. So, so yeah, I don't discount that there could have been dragons of different kinds, even from different regions. That's what's always fascinated me too about like when it comes to anything general, like a giant hairy figure. There's different versions of that all around the world. Little folk. There's different versions of those all around the world, and they don't all look the same, and they don't all act the same, and they have different names. But you have these things just seems like almost everywhere, and that's always been amazing to me that we have this, and there are still sightings of all those figures to this day. People have experiences with them now. It's not like it's just something that was happening before that stopped. So, and that's not even taking into account how weird time can be and time anomalies and all that kind of stuff. So, so yeah. Anyway, that's a good enough ramble for now. I'm gonna toss it to one of you two. I don't know. You two are welcome to go from there, however you want to.
Yeah, I seen a video a while back with some. It looked like somebody took a picture, and when he zoomed in, it looked like he actually got a picture, and it was supposed to be kind of maybe lifelike, of like little fairies and stuff. Actually, little tiny, little small people, um, the possibilities, and if you look at ancient Egypt, and how they were cross, they show pictures of like they were trying to crossbreed animals and stuff like that, and how scientists have done that, in our time. They were doing it in the last century. They were putting, these poor animals, but they were pulling the heads off of one, putting it on another, and or see if they could make it work. And that kind of stuff's been going on for a long time. I mean, I think, as always, I think we've forgotten so much more than we've actually really remembered. And then some stuff, we don't, on all of this, for the, certain people, it has a certain narrative, and even though it's going to be, we want to know something, they're going to push a certain subject. I know I've seen the where he had the guy from up there in Alaska boneyard, and man, he turned around and he had all them saber-tooth tigers and stuff, and it was supposed to be, and they thought, scientists were like, man, it can't have been gone that far back, and, there's no way that they're over here, and all the stuff he had woolly mammoths and all tusks, and he's got thousands and thousands of bones and skeletons and stuff, and he sent some to the Smithsonian, and they turned around and threw him in the river because they didn't want to mess with it. And then he got out and put it out there like, hey, this is where it's at. And people went down there in the Hudson River and pulled him back out, and they found him exactly where he said, So it showed for sure, like, there's always speculation that there's a cover up, but that for sure showed like, hey, there is some kind of cover up, and kind of like Indiana Jones with that, when they put the Ark, speaking of the Ark of Covenant, when they put the Ark of Covenant in a box and shoved it off into that big old warehouse. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that they wouldn't have something like that, have a big old warehouse full of stuff that we can't imagine, and it'd be amazing if they did. They had skeletons for all kinds of stuff, even to the point of even, an angel skeleton or something. It'd be crazy, to think about, but the potential's there, like these.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that just the artifacts themselves, like you guys were talking a minute ago about, Leonardo da Vinci, and a lot of these incredible artists, the way they displayed them in these statues, and even in the primitive cultures, like they show the reference point of what the intention was of the entity. Like you have the case in with Pazuzu, one of the deity presented in The Exorcist. It's really interesting. It's not actually it's very complex when you're looking at the whole story of it. Like the statues of Pazuzu, it is one of the winged deities. I wouldn't know if you'd call it a deity, but a winged demon. But in the case of the way that people were using it, and we've kind of talked about this before, but the long snake-like coil wrapped around it's not known about it, but a lot of archaeologists believe, because it's a true statue and it's a true entity, at least was in reverence with Mesopotamia at the time, and it's the umbilical cord, because it was supposedly to protect pregnant women from these other demons that would come to steal children away during childbirth. And so it was almost like it was a demon. I mean, it was an evil spirit of sorts, but it was sort of like a guard dog in a way. So it was the worst possible entity, but it was as if they like charmed it in such a way that it would work on their behalf against other lesser types of demoniac entity. So there's a lot of that in the conversations about demons, where what's considered to be an evil entity is still useful in a way against other evil entities. It's odd to think that this was common day practice. This was something that they believed in and practiced. And even in the case of Jesus in New Testament, in reference to when he was healing the sick, he was accused that he was using the power of Beelzebub, one of the archdemons. In that case, and Beelzebub literally meaning sort of, I mean, it was an insult. The word was an insult, Beelzebub. It means basically the Lord of S-H-I-T. Like, it's literally what the term means. The Lord of flies. To fly.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a flying entity because it had power over basically quickly moving through the air. And so Beelzebub itself, even, Bel has references in that. Another evil entity that, I don't know, it's really interesting, especially in the cause of flies. Flies have been used medicinally for a long time. But the idea that there's some type of intelligence behind those insects, or that there is some entity that can use that as a scatter. And actually, a lot of cases, like when you're hearing about like even the classic tale of Dracula, that and in a lot of cases of demonic infestation, you have the encounter of flies and things like that. But so that's really interesting.
Yeah, I was just thinking that a lot of your more negative reported hauntings, there's just an abundance of flies that are in a house or a building for no apparent reason. And sometimes they're alive and sometimes they're dead. So yeah, that's definitely a weird connection there. But yeah, it's I lost my thought. So yeah, that's all I have for now. But yeah, Ricky, save me. No, I'm kidding. But whatever you have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty wild. I mean, if you know a lot of them, the evil areas, you know that's has with the flies. That's pretty wild. I didn't know that. I'd have to look in. I think now thinking back into it, you know, I'm thinking like, yeah, I remember hearing that, that happening and stuff. You know, with the, you know, showing that flies. I guess it's just that evil stench. You know, sometimes with like evil places too, you have that. You know, there's some think there's a, you know, portal for, you know, a portal to hell, whatever. You had that smell of sulfur too is very common around those evil spots and everything, and it makes you wonder, you know, that kind of, and even when there has no idea of why you could even possibly be the sulfur smell could be in the area, you know. So it's kind of neat to think about, you know, that maybe that's, you know, adds to it, you know, that the, you know, coming from that evil spot, you know, having the flies and the smell of sulfur and just the rank smell, you know, eggs or whatever, you know, you hear, but all ties together though with that kind of thing.
Yeah, with the sulfur and with that whole idea of that smell. One of the other shows I listen to a lot is of course, Where Did the Road Go? I've been on there a couple of times, and the host of that show, Soraya, he has this he's always wondered, I guess, if because people have there's been reports of that sulfur smell when it comes to sightings of all kinds of things, not just, let's say, a demon or whatever, or the flies or whatever, but you know, when it comes to Sasquatch or Bigfoot, when it comes to just anything anomalous where there's a physical object seen, but then it fades away when it's going, it leaves this smell of sulfur. And what he thought was that it was not so much necessarily meant to be evil. It was more a sense of whatever the manifestation was, whatever was causing it, it was breaking down at that point. The physical matter attached to whatever non-physical being was there was breaking down, and that was what caused that sulfur, that smell. Um, Especially in cases, and this is me more me now than him, but that makes me think of in cases where this whatever people see, it's not going towards them; it's trying to get away. Or it's just staying at a distance and just watching them as they're watching it. I wonder about that too. With how often are things, how much of these things that are seen, how much of them are evil, and then how much aren't, and is sulfur just something we associate more with the evil automatically because of the idea of a burning of a fiery sort of hell where these fiery or beings that will be on fire or in fire, that's where they have to go back to. So just another complication to throw into everything as well.
No, just more things that to put the pieces together. More little small little spots. And you start. It's like them boards with all the little pins and strings attached to it, and tying everything together. You always see in all the movies, where people going through there and bringing everything in the kind of the detective movies and stuff. But maybe it makes you wonder because a lot of the stuff like Bigfoot and things like that. There's a lot of thought process now. Like actually being an actual entity, it would be actually he's more Bigfoot's kind of right there with the rest of them, and they're interdimensional, and so they can actually portal and they can phase. And maybe through that phasing will cause however they're using phasing, it causes that sulfur smell, because you see that a lot of times on a lot of things when you have that interdimensional type thing, you hear that too about the sulfur smell, and you had that, and they're phasing between reality or our reality and theirs. I guess maybe their reality smells like sulfur. I don't, maybe it's, where they're phasing off to is, like a volcano or something. And maybe it is here, maybe it don't even have to be, I guess makes you, just throwing stuff out there, it could be, and even if they are just here, they could actually kind of teleporting like from here to like a volcano or something like that has that sulfur smell. So when they come out, when they open that doorway and they step through, it lets that smell out, as they go, like you said, as they're trying to get away, wherever they're going has that smell,
Yeah, or it could be that other place there is a volcano right there, but just only in that other place that they're going to. It's not a forest or whatever. It's a volcano for whatever reason. However, it happened over in some other version of this world. I could see that as well. So yeah, that seems possible to me. But yeah, regarding the I don't think I've ever had any experiences that I can classify or that I can say I feel like it was an angel or a demon where I had an experience like that. I've had encounters with beings. I've had encounters with a couple times with negative beings, but I don't know what they were to really. And I didn't see anything when I had them. It was more of a invasive feeling, thought, kind of presence in my own mind that was there that I had to push out. So I don't know. Really, I don't think I ever had an experience with any of those things. I've had one being or one manifestation of something or other, whether it's myself or not. Where in my own mind's eye, I saw almost like the cutout of something with wings, like in my mind's eye, kind of black background, I had my blindfold on. I was trying to decide on a couple of things that were pressing at the time, and I was going back and forth over it all, and I just didn't know what to do. And I had this I saw this light appear like in front of my eyes and my mind's eye. There we go. Where it was like the shape of a person with wings that sort of just rose up in front of me and said, "It'll be okay. Everything will be okay. Whatever, go ahead. It'll be fine." That kind of a thing. And it's weird because I'm not going to get into what those decisions were, but in the end, they did turn out to be okay. It didn't amount to anything that had major permanent negative effects on the rest of my life. So I don't know what that was, but that's the closest thing I can think of to having had possibly any kind of experience with any of that. And no problem, Jen. I see you there. Yeah, so I don't know for sure what that was, but that's my only experience that comes close to that. But there's been plenty of things I found online where people say I feel like I met an angel or a demon, or in some cases they don't even know what they met, and it just sounds like it could be one or the other, and they don't even put any labels on whatever they saw because they don't know, or they're just not sure. So, so this is something again that I think goes back throughout time and happens still to this day. And just like you said with your experience, Ricky, I mean, that's something happened, obviously.
I mean, for sure. I mean, and to this day, and like we talked about before, is like, was it truly an angel or was it something else? Just because of, you know, just my mindset. That's just what I put together, and maybe, and I kind of back of my head, I kind of think, maybe I was right. That's what it was. I come up to me, and then I've had, and talked about, I've had like evil entities come up to me and try to talk to me or whatever. Come up to side. I had me and my daughter are both had the same, like, it was the one of the weirdest ones was when I had me and my daughter both were sitting there, and like she was on the love seat against the wall, and how my living room set up. Then I got a double recliner, and then I had another love seat on the other wall. So, and I was sleeping in the double recliner, and she was slept on the love seat. We were trying to watch a movie, and that didn't happen. But the movie kind of watched us. But but we had both of us in our dreams, or we had the same thing, described it the same way, come to us, and it was eerie. Like, it's like, okay, I just had a bad dream, and then when I realized that she saw the same thing I saw, so it came, something was like truly deep down, it's like something was standing between us and trying to get our attention. I don't know if it was, and maybe in the back, maybe it wasn't truly evil, it just looked evil. I know for me that on that situation happened, and then I was like, man, it's a dream, and I popped up, and everything was gray. It was weird. Like everything was just kind of grayish, black and white. Like it was like I was in a movie, like an old black and white TV show or something. And I'm like, something's wrong. But I was in my house, and then the whole time, like every time I was in the same spot. I didn't move. I was in the same place, same house, same everything. Just the light colors and everything changed. And then I finally realized, like, wait a minute, I'm still sleeping. I'm like another level of something. And then I popped up, and I woke up, and and the kitchen light was on because we had left it on. So we just, we fell asleep watching the movie, but then we turned around and talked about it later that morning. We both seen the same thing. So it was a wild thing to see. So it may kind of reaffirm that, there's stuff out there. We I don't know, sometimes it makes you wonder, are we truly meant to even truly understand all of what we can see, or sometimes,
Yeah, I think I'm fine with not knowing all the answers to all this. Um, I think there's more than enough to do just to record as much as we can of it, and to just notice the patterns and whatever we can, and go from there. Because yeah, I don't know if I doubt we'll ever have all the answers to it. Um, at least in this physical existence that we are in at this moment, I don't think we'll have all the answers to it. But yeah, and that's the thing too. I've heard reports of people seeing things that look like they should be evil or negative. That's a common thing with shadow figures. There are some shadow figures out there that are seen that give off this evil sense or evil feeling to people. But then there's plenty of other shadow figures that don't, and they don't do anything. They don't come after the person. They don't. Even in some cases, they don't even seem to notice the person, the people that they're with. So, and then I've heard a couple of, and there's I think they're more rare, but I've heard and read a couple of accounts of people seeing figures of light that also gave off sort of a intense and or negative presence that were just there and then gone, or even came towards them and then vanished. So I don't think that appearance can. It's hard to just go on that, but at the same time, I mean, it's something that's easy to do when you're dealing with something you don't even know what it is to begin with. Um, you know, and then when you're seeing something like that, it's understandable to be afraid right away. But yeah, that's why all this is so hard to figure out, because there is no the shadow figures aren't all evil. They don't always attack everyone. The figures of light aren't always all good. They it's just really that's why this is so there's so much to talk about in all these shows.
yeah, some are tricksters, and also I think part of it is like the mindset, of what you're, you know, and you're in, the person, that individual person, if you have a situation, happen, you know, and if you go into it like, if you see something out of the world, and the only thing you think about is evil, then you're going to think it's evil. It's uh, not that it is evil, but it's because you're already uh, preconditioned them to whatever it is to be evil. And so, yeah, I can see that. I can see some shadows, some is just, they, as some say, that some of the shadow people, some of it's just kind of going by and like they're, okay, somebody's here and walking on. They don't even worry with you, A friend of mine's, well, my ex's daddy used to always joke with me, was, saying thing about ghosts or anything. He said, well, ghosts won't hurt you. I said, people hurt each, people hurt you, and and I was like, well, that makes sense, like, because you'll hurt because you see something that you don't understand, you'll hurt yourself trying to get away from it, or, uh, a lot of times because of, the unknown and the fears takes over, and then your imagination starts running, and you actually put yourself in a spot that, you really don't have to be, and you don't need to be. But it's you see things that you don't understand. I mean, it's totally understandable if you see stuff that you just blows your mind. How you're supposed to react to it. But if it happens more and more, I think you could actually be more and more calmer with it. Like, I don't know, the more I see stuff and hear stuff, it's like we went to Shiloh back last year with my parents, and I never forget. I'll probably remember this till the day I die, because uh, we're riding through, and through Shiloh. It's for the ones that know, it's a big battlefield there in Tennessee where they had a Civil War battle. It was 20 something thousand people were lost and stuff, but 25,000, I think. But we were riding along, and Mama had said something to me about it. So I want to go to Shiloh. I'm like, well, if you want to go to Shiloh, we're doing it. Oh, okay. And then what day? I was like, we're going this day because they'll play around and him and Hall and whatever for a little bit. But she wants to go. Ain't getting no younger. For something, time runs out. I'm like, let's do it. So we went up there and we had like a little picnic and everything. And when we were riding around, they has lots of roads where you can drive through and see all the sites and see different battlefields and where this happened and that happened so I had the windows down and I had the radio off, and we're just idling through this here so that you can kind of take in the whole thing. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden I heard music playing, like trumpet, like battle music playing come through, and I was like, in my head, I was like, what the hell? And I was like, well, I'm not saying nothing. So I'm just driving, and my mom turned and looked at me. She's like, you heard that, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I did. Because I ain't going to lie to my mom.
Yeah.
And she was like, I said, yeah, I saw it. And then later on, we heard cannon fire. It was faint. Just, you could hear it, but the way it sounded, it was wild. But we heard cannon fire later on as we got through. And they had been firing a cannon that day, but they didn't fire at that moment then. They actually fired like 40 minutes later when we got back over there to the site, because it was like big time frames between they fired like every 2 hours or something like that. And so when we were out there, it was between the times. And so it couldn't have been them firing the cannon, actually the reenactors and stuff. But so we heard cannon fire going through there too. And kind of maybe, we kind of talked about it, like kind of maybe like more residual energy too.
Yeah.
Because they're firing them cannons, it woke everything up, and that energy woke everything up, and like, oh, we're back in battle. And, and started playing the music and started firing cannons back at it. And it was pretty wild situation. But, like I said, I've been in a lot of them that I've been by myself, and then we go, well, you can blow it off to whatever, or, I don't really have a good proof, or maybe it's just me. And then, like I said, when my mom turned to look at me, she's like, you heard this? And he's like, yeah, I did. And I didn't even say nothing. I just, until she said, ask me. So that pretty wild, this, knowing that energy is out there for sure. Like I said, I believe it's more residual than anything. Just, I'm sure there's restless spirits out there because of how much terrible it was and the bloodshed that was brought on that ground. But it was an amazing moment for me, for sure.
Yeah, and I've heard of that in other battlefields. People that go to visit, they'll hear that, and they'll hear cannon fire, but it'll sound like it's faint compared to when cannons actually physically fire, in the same area. I've heard that for Gettysburg. I've heard that. That's the main one I've heard about. But I'm guessing. Now that's 2 places. So who knows how many others that happens at as well? How many other sites of terrible battles that where cannons were used? I can imagine that would be something that may be common among many of those places. But yeah, so that makes sense to me that would happen there. I also wanted to welcome Jen back in. I know you had to step away for a minute, but you're welcome if you have any thoughts to join in again.
Oh yeah, I think I have just a natural abhorrence that comes up, like when it comes to talking about these things, as far as like sensation or smells or anything out of the ordinary. I try to keep, I have a fairly regular environment, anything that deviates out of that, because I have had paranormal experiences. I've had things that were really bizarre. And when I start noticing anything that is drifting out of that typical area, it's my thinking that if I haven't requested it, if I haven't sent out for it, there's a reason why it is there. I don't know the reason. If I haven't requested it, if I haven't sought it out, if I have done nothing, I begin to check everything else to see what could have made it happen, that there should be a presence. So the feeling of presence being something to take notice of. And typically, I do think of it on the negative level when something uninvited appears at my bedside or in the middle of the night, especially if it's in the middle of the night while I was sleeping. If I wake up to something there, as many people report, and I have also experienced, there's no reason, if there is no reason. Now, if I have prayed for such a thing, if I have wished for such a thing to come forward or something, to give me answers about something. But when there is no identifying faction, especially if there is a scent and there's a complete presence. And again about that, when we're talking, you guys were talking about scent. So the smell described of the upper atmosphere is of grinding metal and meat. And very interesting. In all of the sacrifice, these entities are drawn to the smell of meat. And so they appear for that. And in the cases of sulfur, the idea about scent and how that is such a powerful olfactory, even beyond just scent, but it's scent, even beyond just sight, but scent is so powerful for the human mind anyway. And all creatures too. I mean, they have an account for that. But it's very interesting with sulfur that it could be coming from the inside of the earth. And I imagine it being something like a portal opening up and you're having the reminiscent scent they're carrying with them from wherever they have come from. And if they have come from the upper atmosphere, because there are theories that space actually is hell. It's the reverse. Dante's Inferno sort of talks about that a little bit. There is an allegory about it, that it is actually space. It's the reverse. So you have this kind of odd dichotomy there, where you're looking at, is it under the earth that is hell, or is it space that is the abyss? So, because there's a finite, at least in our cosmology, the earth has a finiteness to it, whereas space does not. So, space being a type of, perhaps a 9-layer cake of hell, and there are concepts about souls passing through all those different spheres that we talk about as planets that have been worshipped as deities for quite some time. And they even have a frequency, all these spheres do. So you have different planets that people have recorded the frequencies coming from them, and that's really interesting. But I think that the smells people, experience, if they are not human entities, if they are something different, and they take on these more organic scents that are not perfume or cigar smoke or things like that, that they are, maybe you're smelling the reminiscence of where they have come from, and then you could know a little bit about it and know what you might need to do about it. But anytime a person is experiencing an unrequested encounter, or there has been nothing that has initiated the encounter, but you have the entity appear, this is accounted for with children encountering entities at their windows or in their room, where the child has made no initiative to encounter the deity, and they are terrified of it. I don't think it's good to deny to yourself, or I think it's always good to err on the side of caution with paranormal experiences, especially if you have not initiated the experience. So, if you have, and you encounter something, that's on you. but on encounters where people have done nothing and they do experience the paranormal, it's kind of like a, if you're coming across decent, like if you're just coming across people that mean you nothing at all, you feel nothing. But then when somebody has kind of a bad intention, you feel that. I don't think it's good to deny that. So I think that applies, since the shadow realm is supposed to be it's a sort of mirror of the physical realm. I respect it just the same. Now, in the case we're talking about, Pazuzu was an evil entity, perceptibly evil entity, that was called upon to frighten away other lesser evil entities, which is really bizarre. But if you were doing that, or wearing an amulet for that, and you were also aware of the cautions you should take and so on and so forth, or the certain tidbits you should provide to that entity, because they often eat something. There's a whole vampiric aspect to these entities, and especially to the concept of angels versus demons, that one has left its source, and so now it is living off another source. And that source is often, at least for some reason, an account, it's humans. So that's where you get a lot of the vampiric stories. So I do think when you feel something off, and then you also see and smell something, whether it is, a polite ghost would not have, because I think that we are surrounded by them, have much necessity to interact unless it would feel positive if it did. But when it feels truly malevolent and you are frightened of it, especially if you're laying in bed and the lights are off and you're trying to sleep, why would it approach you at such a vulnerable moment? It has always bothered me about that. And I do think that is malevolent intent, especially because I think it is feeding. There's a raising up of the tempo that is fear, which is very easy to access. And then it escalates. And I think that's what it's after, with those cases of shadow beings in a room in the middle of the night, and you see it. That it must be cast out, in a way. So I think that it's kind of like that. And that somehow that ties into, the sort of, what are they? Are they merely the spirits of the dead? Or is there an intelligent entity behind it? And another one real quick thing is with the concept of that these could be the intelligences of a parasite. Just to mention that, as far as angels or demons, they can be used for a good thing, I suppose. But in most cases, even biblically, the accounts of all of the girdles of different herbs that were worn during these baptisms in the water and things were anti-parasitic. By John the Baptist to many other saints too. There was a concern about some type of invisible force that was very intelligent. So it kind of ties into, as well, that the demoniac world that influences the mind and the actions of the world are unseen, but yet alive. And they're a type of entity that can have a mass intelligence, and that looks to be like a parasitic species of some kind, as we think of bacteria and viruses. And when they manifest, if you look at bubonic plague, how it manifests, and the horror it causes, not just physically, but every other way, upon everything around it, it could have been conceived to be demonic. And it's not just a metaphor. It truly is. The effect is horrific, and the manifestation of that intelligence in its host is horrific. I've accounted this before, but in those texts that talk about the Lord of Hosts, and even in the case of Beelzebub, I think it's just, there has to be a differentiation of what cultures have demonic entities and how they interpret it. And it's linked with death and the ways that death come about. And the opposite is the way that life is. And that life surpasses death in some way, and how that is done. What mechanism does life go on? And that's been worshipped through so many different cults, displaying everything from the worship of sex and reproduction to enjoyment and, rapture. In the case of Dionysian cults, it can easily slip into horrific activities as well. The Dionysus cults celebrate life, but on the sideline, they still have this basically like ritual of vivisection. So it is so bizarre at the mythos and how we can, in the modern world, has a hard time interpreting it. The modern world, because we are shielded from it now, and maybe that's for the best. But I don't think it's easy to keep yourself completely, or maybe this is all part of the plan, I don't know, but who knows? I mean, it is very bizarre.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree. So you can go on if you had more, Jen, but or if not, I can go on, but it's up to you. Oh, let's see here. Oh, okay. So I just I do agree that there's so much to all this, and that's why I don't try to have experiences, because it's, even though I do get feelings from whatever I do experience as to whether it's good or bad most of the time, there are plenty of times that I get just neutral feelings or nothing from whatever I'm experiencing, and so I've always been, over the years, I've just developed this strategy, I guess, of observing, and as long as whatever it is goes away and or doesn't come toward me, I sort of I just wait until it passes, and it always does, and then I go from there, and then just record it in my mind, and go on, because there's really no way to know for sure. I mean, feelings, I think, can be manipulated and we can be deceived. So even in the cases where I felt like whatever was going on was positive, I still didn't try to keep it going or to have more experiences with it, except in the case, of course, of the blue light that I saw, blue lights that I saw in the sky. I did ask for more of those, but those stopped. Those I haven't had any of those now for a while. Not since the last time I saw two of them at the same time, and so I don't know what to make of all that. But and the thing too with I did a review a while ago, partial review, because I didn't want to go into all the I didn't want to be outlining actual sort of magical practices on the show in great detail, but I reviewed a book on ceremonial magic, and it did talk about how to summon other beings, other entities, how to summon one or more to protect oneself from others. And sometimes these were designed to summon positive or angelic forces, but also sometimes there were things in there about summoning negative forces, and still having them do, at least for you, do a service, do something that's good, even though they're still bad or negative. So that is definitely something I've noticed throughout reading that book, and then just in here and there when I haven't looked into that a ton, but I have looked into it here and there, and that is an idea that has been around for a long time, and you even see it in fiction. Lesser of two evils kind of thing. In some sort of darker fiction where you have these stories about that happening, and I'm blanking on any exact examples, but it's definitely gone through to the modern day as far as all those kinds of those practices and what can happen because of them.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Real quick, the Sphinx idea, or the idea of something, even in the case of serpents and dragons, there's a constant reference to the pure of heart. So it's really odd that these incredibly could be dangerous entities, and I think that angels are included in this. Because I think that the demonic and the angel aspect, that it's a duality, but it's conceivable, and that one that is, could be aware of the propensity of it in the other. But the idea that to even access the power of angels or demons, that it has something to do with if they can somehow see into the history of the individual, or, and know and have some information about that individual by being able to see. Probably, I don't know if it's through scent, as in like the endocrinology system or blood or whatever the case, or just psychically seeing into the individual, which I think is they're not allowed to do that. So, I mean, there might be something about the species that can actually smell the different, or maybe sense through other means that we are not aware of through all the different senses. These entities are highly sensed and can tell if, like, if a person conjures up a deity or protection, and then there's an offshoot of reaction that occurs in their life, and they wonder why they're experiencing it, but they have actually conjured up a demon to protect them, or in something like that, and they have a sort of side effect from it, and it could be a very severe side effect, but yet the job was done. It has, I think, or there is nothing that is done. As if there is something, there is I don't know, just that different entities have different prices for what they do. Or if they even, there is in the case of jinn, like in some of the genie lore, that they absolutely just particularly hate an individual for some affront. And there is another entity in that realm that seeks to protect it. So there's like this secret idea of a hidden realm going on that is mixed with all of these entities we're talking about. Not to mention the unconscious, subconscious mind of the individual, and the outcast spirit of that, but then the spirits of the deceased ancestors before them that may still be in the after realm. If any of this is to be believed, it's just ironic that in our lore and in our books, they did. So it's really fascinating when it comes to the worthiness is interesting, or the unworthiness, and then it becomes a tormentor, and it begins to feed like a parasite off of the individual who even called it up. So it's like, it's really odd like that. There's some kind of unseen intelligence at work, and that we are all at the, I don't know if we venture into that, or maybe it's not even if we venture into it, but I mean, I think in particular, if an individual ventures into it, it seems like nothing happens, but then things are happening because of, initiating the contact. So people who have initiated contact, sometimes seems like nothing is going to happen, and they come out of that ritual, or they come out of that initiation, and it's like, well, I feel nothing different. But then there is an effect that occurs afterwards. Or, you do something that kind of, at the moment, you're like, I'm going to throw this, say you move into a house, and you're thinking, I'm going to remodel this, I'm going to tear it out, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. There's a whole concept of house spirits, that there are entities that are actually guarding that space. And they had altars to these deities in Rome, they found, that had to do with, basically I think they were called, it was something with an L. I don't have it right now with me, but
That's okay.
I can't remember what the name of it was, but they would create these altars to these spirits of the house, and they would appeal to these entities that kind of watched over the property. And yeah, there's a bit of, some type of intelligence, sort of favoritism, or some sort of judgment from these entities, as if they're watching like pets do the world going on around them, and even beyond that, that they're shaping the world around that house, in a way. So I think that's interesting to kind of throw into it. It's not always a ghost haunting a house. It could be literally the spirit of the house, and
Oh, yeah.
or the property. Yeah.
I think that can definitely happen, especially when it's around long enough and maybe enough energy is put into it. And I mean, fragments of, I don't know, memory and things like that, energy just, yeah, I think that can happen as well. The thing I wanted to bring up too about regarding things, sort of how things go back and forth between fiction and reality or whatever that is I've seen over the years this idea in a lot of fiction that angels represent order, like just complete order, and then demons represent, the negative ones represent chaos, and that if you go too far in either direction, if you have too much, if you have order that's too strict, then that can be just as bad in a way as just complete chaos. And so having both of these figures be, there's just a range of what each of them will do depending on how closely they follow to whatever order or chaos they're supposed to system they're supposed to be part of. And maybe that explains why in some cases there's all these beings that are seen, but they're only seen for a moment and then they go away. But then there's others, obviously, where there's just continual contact, and it's not always clear what it is, but it's just always there, and it's always either helping or it's always doing the opposite. So I think that's also possible. So, but yeah, definitely.
That's because anything is possible.
This is true, especially on Salsido Paranormal. Ha! No, I'm just kidding.
There you go.
But no, yeah, I do love that title. By the way, Ricky, I always have loved that title for a show. So I'm glad that that you have it. But yeah,
Appreciate it.
Go ahead, Ricky. Whatever you have on that.
What Jim was saying about the household deity was the Lares or Lares, Lares. I had to look it up real quick, and then to see what it was because I was curious. I had it on the top of my head. And then earlier, Jen made a comment about why did the spirits come to you like when you're sleeping? But that's because your mind's calm, and you slow down, like your mind's not racing and running and everywhere. It's like, I don't know if someone's done it or not. I do it sometimes. If I'm having trouble sleep, I'll take the remote and I'll watching something on TV to try to go to sleep, but I'll steadily turn that volume down, and then I'll go down to where I can barely hear it, and then I lay there. And then once it gets loud, where it's in my head, I can hear it clearly, I go down some more. And by the time I wake up in the morning next day, when I walk around, I can't hear the TV at all because it's on like volume 2 or 3, and I really can't hear it. But because I've calmed myself down as I'm listening, and like I said, I bring it down where I can barely hear it, and then I just keep on going. And then when it gets where it's normal sounding volume again, I'll bring it down again. And sometimes I had to do it like 3 times. I barely have it like I've done it a few times where I have it like on 1. And so you're calming your spirit down, you're calming yourself down when you're going to sleep, and that's there's so much outside chaos and so much noise in the world. I imagine there's things trying to talk to you all day long, but because of all the outside noise, they can't reach you. And then once you're able to actually calm yourself and shutting all that outside noise out, and then you're actually able to communicate with you, because you're finally at that point, kind of like, with all the societies, wanting to meditate and getting that deep super state of meditation, so you can actually hear, that's the point of it, because you can actually, you calm yourself. You let all that outside noise and all the chaos in the world, and I am, the light bulb deal, and like bills due, this is going on. I got to do this tomorrow. I got to do this. And then once you put all that out and you calm your mind and calm yourself, and then they can actually, there's other things can actually, speak to you. And I believe that's, a lot of times you see, if you go out to nature, you should go out there. When you go out to nature, and, you just, and then find your spot and just chill. I always try to do that. It makes me feel a little better, just get to find a spot. I mean, I went to one spot, it had a walking trail and actually had some seats. I just sat down and just completely just calm myself and listen and focus on listening and hearing. And you can, when you're able to do that, you can actually slow yourself down. It's amazing what you can actually hear. And I believe that's why they do come to you in the evening time or when you're asleep. It's not to especially the good spirits and stuff like that. It's not to, hey, I gotta, to mess with you because, hey, they understand you gotta rest, you gotta go to work, but this is the only time that they can actually reach you because the rest of the day you can't hear them.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. In some accounts, though, it's literally like the entity comes up on the person and chokes them or like presses them. They literally like feel like they're being choked in a lot of accounts of these shadow entities, or they're perceiving basically a black hole that is also sucking the energy off of them, and they're frozen in fear. So there is a delineated line. I mean, for sure, in the accounts that you're saying that you're in a relaxed state, like when a person is in a relaxed state, anyone, and they're kind of just having this sort of reverie with the entity, whatever the entity is, and they understand why it is there. Or maybe they don't, but there's some type of, maybe they're a little afraid, but nothing happens. In a lot of accounts, the fear begins to grow, and it reaches a pitch, and then the entity seizes up on that opportunity, and then it gains power, and attacks the individual, while they're in a state of frozen fear. So I think that I needed to, clarify. I'm not talking about a positive experience being misperceived as evil. There is no way to say there's a positive experience occurring when a person wakes up to something looming over their head while they're sleeping, which is the account of a lot of people with these shadow entities. And I'm not disagreeing with you that when you find at all, but when you are finding yourself in a place of kind of in that zone you're talking about, whether you're relaxing with TV or relaxing into rest, and then you're able to perceive, and there's a message exchanged, and there's something gained from it. But when there's something taken away, it becomes vampiric, especially when it begins to occur on a regular basis. These people become like ghosts to themselves. They become fanatical. And this is what you hear a lot from the paranormal world of like people who experience it. They have an account like I'm describing at some point, and it is very negative. And those entities, I think, especially if they were not sought after and there was no reason for it to occur, or even if there was something the person did, they have accidentally accessed some type of creature that is now feeding on that person in a weak state when they are in an in-between of wake and sleep where they are vulnerable. And so the reason they approach at night in bed is because the person is vulnerable and they are relaxed. So, and there have been cases of this in meditative states, and it is the darker side of transcendental meditation. There are positives to it, but people who have no actual control over themselves or their environment, they become vulnerable to these entities that are called demons in Taoism, where they attack the individual because they are where they should not be. And it's part of the price, the lions at the gate concept. But yes, I think that there are interactions that occur in that state of mind, and that is what the goal is. Meditation and many different types of, strengths of will, individual, especially probably to encounter these said demons, whether they are literally just gatekeepers that are seeing if you are even worthy to enter into that access, and the individual decides for themselves if they want to go further. The concept of, you've come this far, do you want to continue? Because you'll have to go through that. And Siddhartha counted that. And many Taoist masters have mentioned that. I don't follow any of it, but I'm saying that they talk about it. And in Christianity with the saints, many saints record that they were tormented by demons on a regular basis, and it made them stronger. Typically, the challenge brings out the finest, or it brings out the worst. And many people descend into psychotic. They lose their mind.
Yeah. That's it's definitely something I've seen a lot of as well. Just looking into all of the experiences people have, and they some people try to write it off as dreams, which doesn't help them. Some people try to figure out what's going on and do sort of decide, well, it must be some other being, but I still don't know how to stop it. So they keep using more energy trying to stop it. Meanwhile, they're still losing energy, and so yeah, there's definitely a lot of negative cases of that where things can go terribly wrong. And yeah, the meditation thing. I've said this before. I tried it one time and went into a trance of some kind, and I there was someone that appeared, just a shadow or a form next to me, and leaned over like they were looking at me to see if I was there or what I was or if I was okay. I don't even know for sure. And then stood back up and then vanished, and then I came out of it. And that's the last time I've tried to meditate much since then, because that was here in my own apartment with everything locked up, and so there was no physical person here that did that while I was out. So that's always amazes me when people have such amazing experiences with meditation, because I've tried it, and maybe I need to try again at some point, but I'm not in any hurry either.
I don't blame you there. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're looking at um, with the evil, like Jen said earlier, with the vampiric energies and pulling you down, and they do they take advantage of people at that weakened state. Like Dawn said, the lack of sleep also. If you're sleep deprived, you're at that weakened state also. Um, you're it's a two-edged sword right there. You need to have enough rest, or you can't. But then when you do rest, you have to be careful too. Because they will attach to you, and I know on me personally, I've been to places, and like if I just stay in there long enough, it just I don't know. Depression will come over, and it's something it just pulling like, man, I ain't got no energy. I don't feel like doing nothing. You get to that point, like it's like something just pulling everything out of you, and then I'm like, and something made me a click, like I gotta get out of here. Whatever this is, I gotta get out of here, and I leave, and then as soon as I leave and get out, and it's just everything, I feel fine. I feel great. All the uh drugginess and stuff, and it's scary, knowing that there's a lot of evil stuff in the world that will try to attach to, especially people with broken minds or weakened minds, or like Jen said, make people go crazy with some other stuff. You really, but you got to have a strong, strong spirit, and and if you're having stuff, people, like listening, and remind you, it's a big reminder, like, hey, you're not alone. You're not the only one that's having this happen to. So reach out and find help, and uh, because it help you conquer this demon that's attacking it and leeching off you. And it's like I said, it's just scary to think about it, that they have there's this kind of stuff that's out there that can really completely turn you to another person. You hear stories about it and see it. People talk, and just they get in that rut, like, well, I've gotten this rut or whatever, But I think it's more to it, It's just uh, it's not more than just as a rut. It's it's something that's pulling you down, and then you get in your mind weakened, and then you're like, well, I'm no good, and that's that's where it wants you. That's exactly
Right.
where it wants you. So you can keep on staying down there and keep feeding it. You know,
Yeah. I think there's another level to all that as well, where it's not always um it's not always so direct. Like I've heard of cases where someone had an experience in their home and they just became fascinated by the idea of any of this being real. Any of it being, ghosts being real or whatever. And they just they spent all their time trying to communicate, all their energy trying to communicate, setting up recorders, audio recorders and video cameras all around their place or whatever, and just focusing on that in every waking moment that they could, to where it alienated the rest of their family if they were with a family, or to where it just completely exhausted them. And I mean, they ended up having to, there was some kind of medical emergency that happened, and that's what it took in some of those cases to get them to stop. And who knows about, the cases we don't hear about, the more frightening ones where they'd never do. And that's what leads, in some rare cases, to people passing away, or to them dying. And, and it's a medical thing that is written on the, that death certificate, but it was caused by something or someone else that is not in the physical world. So all that is very important to keep in mind, I think. And yeah, protection is key. I do think that's a thing. However, whatever protection works for the individual, for you as an individual, I think, do some research into things and find what feels right for you. Because I'm in no position to tell anyone what it should be. And yeah, figure out what works for you and what you can do, and go from there. Because yeah, protection, it can help, and that can be to have to do with actual physical objects, but that can also just have to do with just ways of thinking, and just energy, and thinking about energy and sending it places, and or keeping it from getting to places. Just all these different things, all these levels of reality. There's different ways to do all this. Um, so yeah. Anyway, that's again, I never like to tell anyone what to do because I don't know anything for sure. But I would just say in that case, do your own research as well as you can, and go with what works well for you.
I tried, well, because I did have experiences, akin to this in a way. And what I found eventually, that just for me anyway, has so far worked really well about, encountering the sort of thing. And one thing that really stood out when I realized it, and it was like it was like the key in the door. It kind of helped a lot. Was whenever I would feel this, or I would, whenever this would happen, and I'd wake up and see, or, and know there. I'd also be so tired, because it would happen, like in the deep middle of the night, in my cases, was that I would I began to see, like in my mind, the most happiest moments of love in my life, whether it was walking with a family member or doing something that, or the sunlight, or maybe it was the sunset, or whatever, but or laughter, anything that was really that I remembered in the moment that I could recall with clarity, and that was repellent to anything negative. And so, in moments where that would come up, where there was something that was there, to cause fear, at least in that instance, at that level, that was actually very helpful. If it was on the thoughtscape or in the dream state, whatever it was, if I could recall, and God forbid that I couldn't recall a moment of joy or beauty or happiness that could level against the malevolence of whatever I was encountering. If I didn't have that, if I couldn't recall the beauty or the love that, I would sometimes feel helpless against that. But in the face of that negativity not being even the right word, but something literally just trying to cause fear, and something, whether I don't think it's internal, I think it is an exterior force. But in the case of a vampiric entity, if it can be helped, it finds it abhorrent, I think, if the individual doesn't just cast forth force or superstition, but the real worth is in the experience and the power of the beauty and the love of life and the experiences you've had. And that does stand well in the face of that type of evil intention, of whether it's your shadow self or whether it is actually a literal entity. But to say that that is very necessary to have in your sort of bag of whatever you bring up is the purpose of why and the love of why of who in the experience. And it could be anything, but it has to mean something, and that actually stands a lot of force against any type of evil entity. In my opinion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I've heard that before too. In some cases that can work. So yeah, definitely. I've mentioned before I have a couple of and I guess it's similar, but it's sort of a go between or extra link in the chain there. But I've been given a couple of crystals from my family over the years, different kinds of quartz, and like I said, I think I mentioned this last show too. I had 1 week, or maybe it was a voice chat. Anyway, I had 1 week, I don't know, a couple of years ago, where every time I went to sleep, I just had nightmares, and it was just every day, and every time, and I was getting worn out because it was a week of just not sleeping well at all. And this one day, I finally had this idea, and I don't know where it came from or who it came from. That what I needed to do was have those crystals by me, and like really close. And so I put them under my pillow, and whoever was causing those bad dreams did not like that apparently, because that stopped after that. After I did that, and I still get one or two bad dreams or experiences here and there, but I still have those crystals close to where I sleep, and they still work. And so I think not only the memories of those that you love that you have in your mind, but even I imagine items that you can have near you that remind you of that too would also help, whatever they may be. Uh, I think that could be a good way to sort of reinforce that as well.
Absolutely.
Other people talk about like with the crystals and stuff. You know, they hold so much. You know, they hold energy, which crystals, quartz crystals can. You know, you can. They're talking about how much, like you could, if you're able to actually put information on it, how much huge amount of info you could put on on a crystal. But you had to like recharge and um, Jen or James, have y'all ever I never have or anything like that, but I've heard people doing it. Have y'all ever like tried to recharging crystals and stuff like that? I've heard like some of moonlight, some of it, go down to a river, flowing water. I've heard different things, but I've never done anything like that.
Yeah, I have not. I've just always kept them by me. So not that I doubt that can be a thing that works. I just so far they've always worked in that way, at least as far as I can tell, to where I've never had to do that. I don't know what that means necessarily, but yeah, that's I do wonder. I always forget about the moonlight thing because I would like to try that sometime. Just put them, somewhere where they get moonlight and put them there, and then and yeah, because they should be cleansed and charged. Yeah, the crystals. The DG in the chat says. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind trying. I just always forget, and until this comes up on a show, and I remember, and then after the show's over, I forget. Yes. You can only keep so much of this in your mind at any given time, I think. But yeah, I don't doubt that works.
I think there's something to it. I received, different stones as gifts. Malachite was something really interesting that I kept getting as a gift. And I got it in ring, and I got it in necklace, and I got it in rings, and so on and so forth. And I'd wear it, and then I would misplace it. It would go missing. And on one occasion, it went missing, and I went up, and where I had went before, out on to this trail, and I had somehow left it there, I guess. And I picked it back up again and took it back with. So it's almost as if, like, I think that the stones do have an intelligence to them. And I think that there's something weird about, like in that case I'm talking about, it was as if, like, I left them by mistake, or I misplaced them in some way, and then received them back again. So, and I've heard that malachite is used a lot of times, when I was looking into it later, that they absorb a lot. And so, I don't know, I do think there's something to it. And I haven't, I like tarot cards, and I'm interested in that, but I never followed any of the superstition. I didn't wrap them up, I didn't do anything like that with them. But what's really weird is moving from several house to house. I had one deck that I'd had for years, and though they'd get spread out, and I did not keep good handle on them, and I just enjoyed them, whenever I get ready to move, I'd find them in drawers and things like that, where I'd put them, or this or that, and the whole deck would be whole again. Really odd like that, how the objects themselves, they do take on some type of intelligence to them. And I think that kind of applies to stones, too, where, they sort of intelligently are where they need to be. And then if a person insists upon wearing them, or if somebody touches them, like there's sort of that too, like where you can almost feel like if somebody's, say you come into your house and there's a feeling something's not quite right, and you find out that someone has come into your house while you were not there. It's odd like that. It feels like that with those objects. It's odd. But I do think they have something to them.
Yeah, looking at the chat here, Matt Sala says, I can't hold malachite either. And then DG in the chat says, the stones show up when you need them. Their kid lost a tiger eye for over a year, a tiger eye stone, and one move, and it showed back up, which is amazing. So that's I love the idea of there being some kind of intelligence there, Jen, because we're going to be doing at some point a show on statues. And I mean, so many statues are made of stone. And yeah, I don't know. That's an amazing idea. And it makes sense. I mean, if there can be intelligence just in fields of energy that we call ghosts or aliens or interdimensional beings or whatever, then why can't solid objects here also have some kind of energy, which we know they do based on science, they have energy. Then why can't there be some intelligence in there as well?
Kind of like, with that, I like to think about it like, with the movie Avatar and stuff, with the whole planet was like connected and to a deeper state, and they actually showing, even science is actually showing that they're, certain things are connected to each other, plant wise, and if you're really into stuff, it makes you go, there's nothing you can eat anymore because you can't eat the animals because they have a spirit, and now the plants have a spirit, so something, but but having that the possibilities of that I kind of agree too. There's how everything has a everything has an energy, everything has a aura about it. Some good, some bad, but the connectivity, bringing things together, and I believe, especially moon cycles and stuff like that, because I mean, the moon controls the oceans full of water, and we're full of water, so I don't see why it wouldn't affect us. I know emergency rooms and police stations, I tell you, on a full moon, their numbers are way up. So the power, the energy of the moon, the energy of the stones and the rocks and the different things in this world, there's a connection. We're all, to a point, we're all connected. Even people, if you, I know you've come upon people and you turn around and you have, you can sense it, that connection. Like, maybe I've known this person for a long time, or maybe
Yeah.
still okay. My screen went blank. I hadn't touched nothing so long.
Oh no.
It timed out. I thought it messed up, but you have that aura and the energy between people. You see, like, hey, this is a good person. Like kids can see it better than a lot of times. Sometimes they're wrong, but some kids are just. But a lot of times you can see kids and animals can see it and see that extra energy in people and see that, hey, this is this person is a good person. This is and then other people you come up and kids don't like them, animals don't like them. There's something off about them, and there's something to that. There's absolutely something to that.
Yeah, I've noticed I've gotten pretty good at just listening to someone's voice. I can usually tell, like, not long after hearing their voice, for a minute or two, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I like that person. I'm not gonna be talking to them much if I can help it. And that's different from, like, you get people that just have different personalities that just may not get along, and it doesn't mean they're both bad, or one is bad and the other is good. There's just that, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking just times, and there's been a few times over the years where, like, I've been part of a group, and talking with them, and someone new joins, and it's like, I don't think that's going to work out well. I think they're going to end up having to leave, and eventually, yeah, that happened. They just, it didn't work out, and so I think there's there are ways to sense these things, and I say I hear it in their voice, but I mean, I think it is also an energy thing. I feel it too, but it's just, for me, because I focus so much on sound. That's where it's the easiest thing for me to focus on, is that. So, But I think I do pick up on the energy of things too. So yeah, I think it's all connected as well. I agree.
I do. I agree with that. I think I like order, and then like I like to keep like an order in my environment, and then in just kind of a zone that I'm in. And then if something comes into that, that I don't expect, I pay attention. I just pay attention to it. And then I decide if I'm going to give it attention or not. But in general, I just like order, And I don't know, that's just kind of personally what I do. But like I like things to be as a particular way. And then when something shakes that up, I give it a little bit of attention to see what it is. And then, allow it to change things or prefer to keep things the same and ignore it. And it's interesting because I've heard about like it's ironic that way, that ignoring something, like the Taoists talk about a demonic entity shows up. You just pretend like you don't see it, and it goes away, which is really odd. But talking about it on a psychological level, I mean, it has some grit to it. A lot of hauntings and encounters, people give it more attention, and it grows. And it accounts for like a door slams and nobody closed it. You just kind of acknowledge you noticed it, and then pretend like it doesn't matter, and then it doesn't grow anymore. There's something about that, feeding it energy, and that goes into a lot of like the God feeding with these entities. And if you want it to grow, you go ahead and feed it. You may feed it to such a point it becomes like a servant. And you've seen that. I mean, we have seen it, I should say. Or we become like that. In religion, that we serve it. And that fine balance between that. And there's, I think, a humbleness about realizing that we only live so many years. And just, it's interesting. I mean, the human experience is so bizarre. Especially when we are encountering the stories of our forefathers and our myths that we are told about, how to make sense of it, and to make sense of the world, and to find some kind of decency in it, and without pride. Without pride, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I agree. And Matt Hall in the chat says it feeds on fear. It makes me think about that. I mean, I'm just trying to imagine if I really tried to urge on whatever experiences I had, if I tried to really focus on them and spoke out to whatever was there. And I mean, I guess they would just keep happening more and more. But I don't do that because I am very much of the opinion, for more than one reason, not just the reason that I don't want to deal with it all the time, or the possibility of negative effects, but just the fact that I'd like to just sort of observe whatever's happening and take it down, remember it, and see what it connects to later on, without putting as little of myself into it as I can. Just because I'm interested in what is causing it, but that doesn't mean I want to be dealing with that 24/7. Obviously,
Same.
So
Same.
yeah. Well, this has been amazing. We've already been going now for 2 hours, so I think it's probably a good place to get this wrapped up here. But Ricky, if you want to, I'm sure most of my listeners now, they're already aware of your show, but if you want to talk about your show a little bit, then we'll get going here.
No, yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for having me on, James. I appreciate you. And Jen, I appreciate y'all having me on. And yeah, it's been fun. It don't even seem like it's been 2 hours. We just flowing pretty good here. But yeah, for the ones that don't know, yeah, I have the A.I.P. Anything is Possible podcast. We talk about a little bit of everything. You never know what kind of subjects I'll bring up. I like to keep it open and kind of. I have pre-recorded stuff that comes out on Wednesdays, and I have shorts that come out on Mondays. Just different things like like this last Wednesday, I had a Project Bluebeam, Project Storm Fury, and Operation Timber Sycamore, and then and the one before that was Project Popeye and the Starfish Prime and Operation Chaos, and the one before that was the Dalston time travel mystery, So I kind of go all over the place. Whatever pops in my see something, and then the shorts are really all over the place. This last week was talking about what can dimples do, and then the one before that was Operation Sea Spray, where they sprayed all that bacteria all over San Francisco to see what it could do, and killed some people and killed a person and made a lot of people sick. But back in the 50s and 60s. But then I go live every Wednesday, 8:30 Central Time. We talk about stuff going on, today, and it can go anywhere. We are really, me and my two co-hosts, Jamie and Dave, we are very ADD, and we can take it anywhere, and we'll take it everywhere. But we have a great chat, and everybody comes in, has fun, and I always try to throw a couple fun videos in there just to keep it the balance of it, not to be completely negative. I don't like that. I want it have fun and balance on both sides. So, and we'll talk, like I said, a little bit of anything and everything. So, but appreciate you, James, and appreciate you, Jen, for having me on here tonight, and it's been fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm always delighted. Ricky's shows are really fun. Like, just really enjoy listening to you guys kind of banter and everything you're talking about, and I just really enjoy it. It's refreshing. I find it really refreshing, and it's like to listen to it, and it's just a good, honest, perspective, and it's fun. Great show, Ricky. I love the channel that you're working with and how you're presenting it, and I think it's just a nice, a good balance. It is fantastic balance, and yeah, Ricky has a great channel, and everyone should subscribe.
He does, yes.
I
And everyone
appreciate it.
should. Yeah, I definitely recommend that as well. And yeah, and then also we haven't really talked about this at all before, really, at least not for a long time, Jen. That you have your own channel that obviously you're not working on at the moment as far as putting out new stuff.
I haven't done
But
a lot with it.
that's
I
okay.
haven't
There's
done a
still a
lot
lot
with
of great stuff there. So if you want to talk about your channel, I like to. I don't want to ever,
Yeah, I mean, I did do a lot of videos, and I pulled them, and then kind of thinking about where I wanted to go with it, and it's taking a lot of time to think about how to go with it. It's difficult. It's difficult to run a channel, and I think that it's not good to go it alone. So there's a lot of that, and so I'm just sort of taking my time with it and really thinking about where I'm trying to go with it. So, I mean, there are some videos up there. I took a lot of videos down, and then because I'm trying to think about those too. I'm really serious, so I have a lot of seriousness. It may be too serious, but that is part of it, and I do hope to do more with my channel, but right now I'm not doing much of anything with it, except for just considering it, about what I'm going to do with it.
well, it is a great channel, and I would definitely recommend everyone check it out if you haven't already. And as we've already talked about before, and off of shows, I definitely will be happy to help you if and when you do start again. I'll be happy to join you for any of your shows as well. So, but yeah, thank you both for doing this tonight, and I think that's going to do it. So everyone, take care. Thank you all for being here. I need to scroll up here to get to the place to where we stop this. Let me see here. Okay. So yeah, thank you all for being here, and we will talk to you next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.